Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I am so excited today because it always amazes me whenever I book somebody on my show, and it happens months in advance, right? And it seems like the universe just aligns with what we're about to talk about, synchronistically, if that's a word. And it's just, I don't think it's a coincidence, of course, that the word of the day or the word of the last 3 weeks has been joy. And if you've been watching the Democratic National Convention, the joy was just palpable. It was just everywhere. And I just love the fact that Kamala Harris calls herself a joyous warrior. It's just amazing to me. And here I have scheduled somebody that's going to talk about elevating joy, and she's turning it into a movement. And I think the movement is definitely timely. So let me tell you about my guest. Mary Meduna-Gross is an executive well-being and leadership coach for the last 2 decades. And part of her life mission is dedicated to elevating joy and well-being on the planet, starting with ourselves, because of course that's where it has to start. She brings a unique blend of experience with a master's degree in mental health counseling and a PhD in leadership. That's pretty amazing in itself. Her diverse experience includes service as a hospital corpsman during Operation Desert Storm educating people with children with emotional disabilities, and over 2 decades in leadership and coaching. Founders and CEOs of business seek her guidance when they recognize the impact of lack of joy, their mental health, on their business, relationships, etc., and overall satisfaction with life. What more important thing could be done?
Yeah.
So she is an advocate for conscious business. I have interviewed her. We were just talking about this, I think 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And every time I interview her, there's something else that she's into. It's so exciting to see everything just unfold in your life and how profound it is and how important it is. I mean, really and truly, what could be more important than elevating joy? And I think so many of us don't even know what joy is. Yeah, we've kind of,
that's so true.
yeah, in the last few years, we've kind of forgotten what it is, or maybe even never knew what it was. I know I always talk about the difference between joy and happiness, because joy is inner state.
That's
And
right.
happiness is, oh, I'm happy because I'm in Disneyland, or
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, they're so different. So tell us, Mary, how would you even define joy and even well-being? How does that define?
I love that question. And I love what you said about joy and happiness. I would agree completely, right? Joy is that inner sanctum that regardless of what's happening out here, I can still feel joyous. I can be sitting in traffic and I can still be joyous. Whereas that happiness really does depend on whatever's happening outside of me. And am I happy with that? And basically what I'm saying is this world outside of me aligning with my preferences? And when it does, then I feel happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that for me, this whole concept of elevating joy, this is all I really have realized. And Royce, I have to acknowledge you for being a really big part of my whole transformation here in the last 5 years. Because you are one of those conscious business people that were doing it, like that it's possible. Like, and that was a strong anchor for me, because when I was coming up, even before I knew conscious business and I was doing my PhD, there was something, I didn't have the word conscious, but I knew that this leadership needed to somehow be different. And so when I met you and you were applying conscious principles to business, oh my gosh, it's possible, right? And so that really helped me kind of align with this possibility. It was no longer Mary's wish, like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if Royce is showing me how to do this? And so then, now going back to my own experience, one of the things that I realized is that as a coach, even as a leader, how many things that I did, because this is going to be good for either the people that I'm leading or it's going to be good for the people that I'm coaching, right? For instance, I just started a year ago. I invested in neurofeedback as a tool for my clients. And I tried it and I loved it, but I got it out to my clients as quickly as I could. And we're having good results with it, but I wanted to do it more locally. And so I asked for it back and I started using it again. And it was at a time when my health was probably about as bad as it had been. I've gone through some health issues and this was a really, wow, I really hit low, and not just physically, because I'm used to physical pain. I'm used to that kind of lifestyle. This time the depression really set in too. And I heard that inner chatter just saying, what's the point? Why bother? What the hell? Right. And if I didn't have the self-awareness skills that I have, where I can be that observer and just say, oh, well, that's an interesting thing to say to ourselves. Right. Versus buying into that story, right? Because I could see how quickly I could have spiraled out of control very quickly without that self-awareness to kind of hold me in. And then thankfully this neurofeedback, and that's a conversation maybe for another day, but it's blowing me away. But the reason that I bring that up now is because I realized I didn't buy neurofeedback because I thought it was going to be good for me. I did because it was going to be good for everybody else. And now I'm realizing it is changing my life. It is changing my life. And I see again how I put others first. I'm not thinking of myself. And so for me, this whole movement about elevating joy on the planet, starting with ourselves, there's two important parts of that. First of all, that we will contribute to elevating joy on the planet. Of course, that's important, but I think that kind of gets overstated, because how can I elevate joy if I'm sitting over here and I'm depressed, or I'm in a puddle of pain, or whatever? I'm not elevating joy. So how do I start with me? And it's a continual question, right? It's a commitment that I've made to myself. But as I've just said, I fall off this bandwagon too, and start to think about other people. So I really want to drive this message home and invite everyone to personally commit to elevating joy and well-being on the planet, right? So get that big picture, get everybody else, but it's going to start with us. And so every time we find ourselves going and doing everything for everybody else, it's an opportunity for us to say, oh, what is it that I need in this moment? And am I taking responsibility for that right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what I was saying about the Democratic National Convention, it just seemed like it was overwhelming joy. And it struck me as I was watching it that I never think of politicians as being joyous.
No,
You know, I mean, once in a while, Obama would get a little sparkle, but mostly it was serious stuff. You know, and I'm wondering if people judge that as being kind of goofy or not serious enough, or, you know, how does that play with our kind of negative connotations about joy?
Yeah. Right. I mean, so, one of the things that we were doing prior to this conversation is putting it out on social media. What keeps you from putting yourself first for joy and well-being? And, I think that you just tapped on one of those reasons why we don't, is because it's considered a soft skill, right? It's not really that important. Technical knowledge and skills is much more important in our world right now than the people and relationship and that collaborative way of being with one another. But I think this is changing, and this is the evolution that we are in. And when I hear, I had missed Kamala Harris about being a joyful warrior. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That I get the chills when I hear that, because to me that is a sign that this is where we're going, right? And all of this drama and everything that we've been through for the last, I don't even know how many years now, right? To me, it's just that external breakdown. We all have the internal breakdowns, right? We have to, sometimes it can be really uncomfortable letting go of those old ways of doing things, because that's how we always thought it had to be done. And literally our nervous system is saying our life depends on it, even though it really doesn't, but to our nervous system, it does. And so when I see these little changes, I think that we're all seeing the power of connection, right? So we saw power in domination. We saw power in competition before. I think now we're starting to see power in connection and in agreement and in finding win-win solutions.
Yeah.
That's what I hope for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's interesting what you're saying, because I'm flashing back on two things. The first thing is Ram Dass, one of my heroes, spiritual heroes. And before I was teaching my Perfect Life Awakening courses, I would read him just religiously. And there was one little story that he told that just struck me. And somebody asked him, Ram Dass, how can you tell your spiritual guru? How do you know that you found the right one? And he looks at this man and he says, look for smile lines and a glimmer in their eyes, because they have to be joyous. If they're not joyous, they haven't figured it out. You know? And I read that and I was like, oh yeah, of course. And then years later, when I started my program, my Perfect Life Awakening program, it didn't have a name. I never knew what to call it. It was called Royce's Classes. Everybody,
right.
Those classes you go to on Wednesday night. And so I was meditating one night, and all of a sudden, I get this a lot. I saw words, and they slowly appeared, almost like an airplane doing skywriting. And it said, perfect life awakening. And I went, oh, that's what I do. That's right. But then I saw the PLA,
Okay.
and I said, it's play. It's play. Yeah. And
Oh,
so
I just got the chills again.
I know. So I now put a little thing over the A to make sure people know that it's play.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
serious. It's very serious. But, when I present things, I do it with a smile and a laugh and a glimmer in my eye.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that
I
story.
absolutely love that story.
Yeah. So, okay. So tell us about the movement that you're doing. What does that look like? How does that unfold? Tell us.
I wish I could give you a roadmap here. I really don't know. I'm figuring this out one step at a time.
Good.
And this is one of those first steps is having this conversation with you and with all of your listeners, just to see, how is this landing? Is this a commitment your listeners would be willing to say, yes, I'm going to sign up for that? And if you do, reach out to me. And because really what I want to do is I want to start collecting not the names, but numbers of people who are saying, yes, I commit to elevating joy and well-being on this planet, starting with me. Now, that's all I'm asking of anyone, is just to make that commitment to yourself. And here's why I think that's important. Because when we make a commitment like that to ourselves, even if we don't know what this is going to look like, just like I have no idea what this movement looks like, I believe that we can trust our higher guidance. I believe we can trust that if this is in our best and highest good, we just need to take the next step. And so again, this step is, does this resonate with people? Is there emotion that comes up that says, you know what, this is who I want to be. I want to be this person that elevates joy and well-being. Because I think honestly, that's what we all do. When I think about purpose or fulfillment, my version of that is, it's a way of loving. What is your unique way of loving? To me, that is your purpose.
Yeah.
And so if we can commit to aligning with that part of ourselves, loving ourselves so that we can now love others, I believe this is how we address global issues, global conflicts, because a global conflict is simply a reflection of the conflicts that we're all carrying around internally.
Yes.
Right. And so if we commit to, I don't have to fix global issues. I don't even have to fix me. But if I'm willing to grow this love within me, then the love is going to grow within my circle and those circles. And this is then how we get to a more collaborative, cooperative kind of community, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting that you keep using the word love in your description, because that's really what it is. And
It is.
if we don't love ourselves, we can't feel joy. We just can't.
Can't.
And what I'm also hearing is it's a real big shift in our priorities, because I think prior to this joyous awakening that's going on, we have been focused on survival and making others wrong and killing what we don't like. And, and in my other show that I just started last week, I talk about mirroring. And you just stated that too, that everything is a reflection of us.
Yes.
If we have that desire to make somebody wrong or stop something or squash something, it's a part of us that we can't accept and we're trying to squash.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to squash joy.
We have been. We really have been for the sake of survival, right? Our ego thinks that we don't have time for joy. Like, gosh, we got work to do. We've got people to change. We've got things to change. We got things to accomplish. Like, it's all up in our head. This is what's important because this is what our survival is. We're so disconnected from our soul, which I believe is our true source of internal energy and inspiration and who we really are. And so when we are living in the state of chronic stress and lack of joy, we are abandoning the soul part of ourselves. And so no wonder we get burned out and our bodies fall apart and our emotions just go all over the place. We are not internally grounded.
Yeah.
And so when we make this commitment to ourselves, even if we have no idea what this means, I believe that unconsciously we will each find, as long as we're willing to look for it, what's the next step for me? Yeah. What would that look like for me to elevate joy? What would it look like for me in this moment to elevate joy for myself?
Yeah.
And for me, honestly, an example of this is I decided to stand for this. When we were doing the intro, I thought, you know what, I would feel more energetic if I stood for this conversation today. So I raised up my desk. But that's one of those little things that I think as a habit, we don't tune into ourselves enough. What do I want in this moment, right? I want to show up for this conversation, and I want to be as open and responsive and adaptive as possible. I can't do that when I'm sitting down. So I'm going to stand up for that.
Interesting.
A year ago, I would have just been on my butt, not even thinking about it. We're just going to do it. And we would have a good time. No doubt about it. But I think this elevates me, and hopefully this elevates the conversation that we're creating here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important what you said about the soul, our spirit, because our soul, our spirit is joy. There is nothing in it except joy.
Yep.
You know? And once we touch that part of ourselves, joy naturally starts to arrive. You
Exactly.
know, so out of touch with it, we just don't even know who we really are. We're not trained, so to speak, to touch that part. We're not told that it even exists. I didn't know that it existed until I started having experiences of it.
That's right.
I thought I was crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're not alone. A lot of us think we're crazy when I was doing my PhD and I didn't have conscious leadership, I didn't have that language, but I knew something was different from what I was studying and what we were practicing. There was something more there. And I felt like, well, I must be the idiot who can't figure this out. Right. Because I was taught to and reinforced to go back to question myself, right? Other people must be right. You must be wrong.
Yes.
And that's one of those ways that we squash our own joy, that we abandon ourselves, is because we buy into those kinds of stories.
Yeah. And logic is the only thing that matters,
And logic is all that matters.
So how do you, given the fact that you work with CEOs and business types,
Yeah.
and I've worked with a few,
Huh?
I just say not that many.
Uh-huh.
They're just not drawn to the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like this. But how do you get past all of that with them? How do you say, yes, logic is important. It's good to be grounded and rational and responsible, but there's more. How do you reach that?
I think one of the tools that I use that helps create the shift most efficiently is the energy leadership model. And this is something that I learned through the coaching program that I went through. There's an assessment that goes along with it. But basically what this energy leadership model says is that there are 7 lenses through which we can see our world, right? And so this goes back to also the idea that stress isn't something that's happening to us. It's something that we're creating through the stories that we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
right? You and I could experience a similar experience. You could be like, it's no big deal. And I could be like in a puddle on the floor because my story is so dramatic, right? So that's the first part, is just reminding them that the stories that they're living with is just a single version of what's possible. It is not the totality of what is possible. And most people get that, right? And yet our ego says, yeah, but all of those other possibilities aren't relevant. This is the only one that's relevant for us.
All those yeah buts. Yep.
Yeah, the yeah buts. So there's 7 levels in this model, and levels 1 and 2 are what, if we use the above the line and below the line model of conscious leadership, right? So level 1 and level 2 would be below the line. Level 1 is the core thought here is I lose. No matter what I do, no matter what you do for me, I'm going to lose. And so there's a lot of apathy here. There's a lot of I'm not doing anything. There's a lack of planning, because what's the point? Like when I was in that depressive state, I was definitely in this level 1. Level 2 is still a victim state, but in this victim state, we now feel like a fighter, right? And so we need to win. And in order for us to win, it's not just for me to win, but in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
Right. And so here's that domination. Here's that winning at all costs. I was watching the Pete Rose story with my husband on Netflix yesterday. And if you watch that, what you'll see is that Pete Rose lives in this level 2. He's got to dominate. He's got to win. He's got to be the best. And so he's going to do all kinds of things that give him that experience of being the best and being dominant, even though he's doing all of these things that are illegal and shady and that he's lying about and all of that. But it doesn't matter because his purpose is to feel good inside. That's what all of our purpose is. So those are the below the line. We consider the line level 3. And at level 3 is when we start to take responsibility. This is when, okay, I can't wait for the outside world to change. Maybe there's something within me that I can shift that would help this. And so we spend a lot of time at this level 3 while we are committed to letting go of this defensive way of being that we've been taught, while we figure out what is even possible. Because as you said, most of us haven't even been told that there's more to the story.
Yeah.
And so we kind of live in this level 3 as we're figuring this out and recognizing now how the people around us are also living at level 1 and level 2 and making, justifying their behaviors because we don't know what to do with that yet either, right? And so level 3 is just, I'm going to take responsibility for that, even if I don't know exactly what to do and I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to tune into me. So that's 3. So level 4 then is, it's all about everyone else. It's you win. And I almost didn't use this whole model because for me, I came from a codependent background. If I were to say you win, that feels like I have to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so when I realized is what I was growing up with was not this level 4 compassion and generosity that comes from a place of abundance. I give because I have it to give.
Yeah.
You do with whatever you want with it. Once I give it to you, it's yours. And I have no hold on that, or I expect nothing back from that, versus at level 2, when I'm being the nice guy and I'm going to be doing something nice for you because I'm expecting that someday you're going to do something nice for me, right? This is that game that we play with each other, rather than just giving because we can. So that's level 4. Level 5 is win-win, right? We go into any conversation, anything, it's all going to be win-win. We're both going to win here. Level 6 is when we really are now able to tap into our intuition on demand, right? We have come so close to this soul, right? We've developed such a strong relationship with it that we're getting our intuitive hits. We feel that grounded, we feel supported. And then level 7 is enlightenment. And I would say, I think I do know 1 or 2 people that might live in that space, but most of us don't, right? Yeah. Level 7 is that aspirational kind of experience that to feel that oneness, but most of us don't stay in that state. So when we know, and then when we have an assessment that says, under normal circumstances, this is the lens that you tend to go to. Under stress, these are the lenses that you tend to go to. When we have that data, now it's this subjective experience put into data. Now we can kind of do something with it and decide, who do I want to be now? What lens do I want to use more often? What lens do I want to use less often? What are those core beliefs that I would need to let go of so that I could live more in these upper levels?
And somebody that's at a CEO level or very involved in business, they're able to get that and apply it. Wow.
Yeah, because when it's all laid out, because of course we're not looking at any graphics here today, but there's a lovely graphic that ties this all together. And then there's that data. And when they get their data, and unless most of us under stress show up at level 1 and level 2, that's what we do, right? And so when I'm working with a CEO and this level 1 is really long, then we can say, well, how is this showing up for you? And I've listened and I've picked up stories, right, as we've been going along. And I could say, well, you had mentioned this, that would be a level 1 behavior. And most of them are like, oh yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you probably do. And so there's the other piece I think that is important for high performing people is this sense that they're not wrong, because I think high performing people are highly sensitive to being told that they're wrong. Right. And so there's no wrongness in this. This is just where you are. This is who you are being right now. Is this who you want to continue to be or not? I can help you move out of this, or if you want to stay where you are, stay where you are. There's no judgment, literally no judgment here.
And then they just make different choices.
And then we start to learn to do the self-awareness piece. So once, we know kind of where we are and what lens that we're trying to use, now I start to teach around self-awareness, right? So because most of us do not go through life aware of what's happening, right? It's just happening to us. It's like we're walking through our own movie versus watching our movie on screen.
Mhm.
And when we can go back and forth between those two experiences and pull ourselves back and watch this on the screen, now we can look at what's happening with more objectivity than we are when we're in the skin. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we start to talk about, well, what is it that you would have to believe about yourself to continue these kinds of behaviors?
Yeah.
And then so that's the self-awareness part. What's that inner chatter saying to you, and what's important about that? Why is that inner chatter saying this? What does it believe about you? Because I'm still shocked, and I hope this is something that we see evolve, but I see this in so many ways of dismissing this ego part of us, right? This part of us that our shadow part. Like we've got to kick it out, or I saw it the other day labeled as a demon. I don't describe it that way, right? I think of it as our yin and yang. We've got a braking system with our ego, and we've got a gas propulsion system with our soul. And these two parts should be working together.
Yeah.
But because of our conditioning, we really just lean into that ego part of ourselves because that's survival.
Yeah.
Versus when we can get to that soul, that is true survival, right? And not just survival, but it's thriving, it's creating, it's leaving that impact.
Yeah.
And so I specifically work with conscious leaders or people who define themselves as conscious leaders, because your average business person who is out there to use anything and anyone to get to their objectives are not going to buy into this. Right. They're at level 2, they're happy at level 2, and they're going to dominate until the day they die.
Yes. Yep. Like certain politicians that shall remain nameless. Yes. Yes. Well, let's take a little break. I'm talking with Mary Meduna-Gross about elevating joy and this wonderful, important movement that she's starting. We'll be right back.
Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Mary Meduna-Gross about joy. And I was thinking during the break about the Democratic National Convention again. And I was thinking about how I always talk about what I refer to as the 100th monkey theory, about how things spread energetically without us even knowing how they happen. So I was thinking about seeing everybody in such joy and how that's just spreading everywhere on levels that we're not even aware of, in ways that we're not even aware of. But I think it is really triggering some tremendous growth and tremendous shifting in the planet because of this. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah, I can too. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, when I think about joy, I think about living a life of purposefulness, what we are really supposed to be doing here, which might have nothing to do with our jobs.
Right.
It might be part of our jobs, but I talk about this all the time in my program about how we know what we're supposed to do upon arrival, and then we forget. We buy into everybody's, telling us, "Oh, you're supposed to be a doctor because your father was a doctor," that kind of thing, versus what is my soul telling me that I'm here to do. And until we function from that place, we never experience joy.
No.
I know in my own life, I was doing all kinds of things that didn't bring me joy, but I was supposed to do them, because I arrived with artistic talent. So I was supposed to be an artist, and it never felt right to me. And once I started doing what I came here to do, there's an ongoing sense of joy that doesn't dissipate. It does not go away, no matter how busy I get or no matter how many people I'm not teaching or whatever it is. I know I'm supposed to be doing this. So how do you talk to people about that, especially somebody that's in a high level, business? Do you bring that up with them? It's like, are you sure this is your purpose?
Yeah. Well, I think that purpose in my conversations tends to come a little bit later because first of all, they just want to tone down the pain, whatever that pain looks like for them, whether it's I'm not achieving enough or it's physical pain or mental or emotional, it doesn't matter. We really get to that first. And then when we get to that and then we start to kind of plateau again and things are kind of slowing down. It's like, what is feeding you? What is inspiring you? And they're like, I don't know. Right. And so that's really, we go back again then and ask, we challenge ourselves to tune into what is it that we want. I'll just speak from my own experience. I don't know how I got to this, but it never even occurred to me to stop and ask me what I wanted at any given time. I was just always trying to live up to somebody else's expectation of where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing, when I was supposed to be there. It was almost as if I didn't have those external expectations. I didn't know what to do with myself. Yeah. I remember very vividly, and this is just an example of this experience, coming back from the Gulf War, from deployment, right, where everything was regimented. You were told what time you were going to get up, what time you were going to go to bed, what time you were going to, everything was planned for me. And now when I got home, I had to figure all of that out for myself. And I felt really lost for a while. And so I think that that's just an example of this whole experience of when we're not connected, we don't know what we want, we're going to feel lost. Yes. And so before we dive into that whole purpose thing, because there's just so many feels about that with so many people, I really just focus on, do you know what you want in this moment? Do you know what you want for dinner tonight? Are you letting somebody else decide that? And I'm guilty of that too. Like, I don't want to have to worry about dinner. A bowl of cereal is good for me, kind of a thing. But I also know that my body needs more than that, right? And that's been part of my health challenge too, is that I had not been feeding my body well, and it fell apart as a result of that. And so one of the things that I've learned here is really to tune into, what is it that I want to eat today? How much do I want to eat today? Because who's thinking about that? Most of us are haphazardly thinking about, what am I going to get for lunch today? Or what am I going to get for breakfast? And if nothing shows up, then we don't eat anything at all. Or we grab something from the vending machine, or we have another coffee, or we have another Diet Coke or another Monster, or something, right? That's going to give us the energy to get through the day. And these are all those little ways that we abandon ourselves because we haven't tuned into what we want.
Yeah.
We're trying to make the best of it, but we're making things worse for ourselves. So before I really get into that whole purpose piece, we really practice a lot of what is it that I want? Because when we start to tune into what we want and we start to know ourselves a little bit better. And then we say, oh my gosh, I've always been like this. I've always wanted this. Now we can start to see those threads that lead through our entire life timelines to now. And really, it starts with just being willing to say, what is it that I want right now? What do I need right now? Another common example is running the remote control. How many women are running the remote control at home? We don't. We give it up. We give it up to somebody else to do, and just whatever they choose, we'll watch that with them.
Go, honey.
I caught myself with that too. My husband's not home. I don't know what I'm going to watch on TV, right? Maybe I don't even want to watch TV. How about that? And so it's just coming back and asking ourselves, what is it that I want? Because that brings us closer to ourselves. It helps our nervous system feel more settled. It doesn't have to be as reactive. It just improves everything.
Yeah.
So that's a really powerful place to start, along with that self-awareness piece.
Can I add something? Because, I never knew in a million years, I never thought I would be teaching. I was deathly shy. Never said a word the entire 18, 20 years of school that I went through. And if somebody had said to me, Royce, guess what? You're going to be teaching spirituality and you're going to have blah, blah, blah. I would have thought they were insane.
Yep.
In fact, I went out to dinner with a boyfriend one time and he said, this was in college. And he said to me, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, well, I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. I don't want to be a teacher. So I had to go through a spiritual experience to get me to do this. And I had to have it literally land in my lap to do that. Does that happen to some of your clients where they think, no, that's not it? But
Absolutely. We all have this idea of how we're supposed to show up or how we want to show up, right? We have all of these preferences. I'm curious if you can think about yourself at that younger age. What was it about teaching that was so repulsive to you?
Repulsive, every part of it.
Every part of it, being up in front, having something to say,
having to know something, having to believe it. I was a skeptic. I didn't believe in spirituality. Right. Yeah, you name it. It was repulsive to me. Terrifying is a better word.
Terrifying. Yeah, that is a good word. So I think that all of those things that are terrifying, right, tells your nervous system, this cannot be safe for us. Therefore, we take teaching off the list of possibilities, right? And I think this, one of my clients right now, we've been having a lot of conversations about being connected to the outcomes, right? Can I just put it out there and say, this is what I want, but not have to dictate how this shows up for me? Can I trust my soul? Can I trust the universe to conspire along with me and help me bring this to life? It's a different space to be in. And so I think that, what happened, and tell me if this is true, right? So you recognize, first of all, you have this pit in your stomach, right? Something's not right. I'm unhappy with something, and there's this sense of resistance. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so when we have that sense of resistance, what do we want to do? We want to fix it and make that resistance and that pain go away as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So we distract ourselves. We'll find something else to do that feels a little bit better, but we're not resolving what this resistance is. So my favorite new strategy for this, recently I read the book, Whatever Arises, Love That by Matt Kahn. Have you read this book?
No.
Highly recommend this book. It's been a game changer for me because I always wanted to fix it. Like, first of all, what's the problem? Why am I having this resistance? And I'd want to diagnose it. And then, what's the plan going to be? This book says, no, you don't do any of that. Just love that part of you that is resisting.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Right. And it's literally what he says. Can you do that? Can you love that part of you that doesn't know what to do? Can you love that part of you that is angry and frustrated that you don't know what to do yet?
Yeah.
And what I have found when I have started to do this with myself is all of that resistance tends to melt away.
Yeah.
It melts away, and all of a sudden, the possibilities are, it's like they're right there. It's kind of like one of the kitty Easter egg parties where all the eggs are out in the middle of the lawn kind of thing, right?
Right.
It's, oh my gosh, the universe is conspiring for me. The Easter eggs are here for me. All I have to do is pick them up.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm resisting or suppressing that resistance, I can't see the Easter eggs that are laying on the lawn.
Yeah. What you resist persists. Yep. Yeah.
Until you can love it.
Yeah. And I think, well, back to my story, selfishly.
Yeah, good.
I was just, as you're talking, I was remembering something that I didn't know. I had completely suppressed in myself before I started teaching. And that was that when I was about 3 years old, there were several little kids on the block, and I used to gather them up and put them in my kitchen, and we had a blackboard, and I would sit there and I would teach them.
Okay.
3 years old.
Yeah.
I would say, well, this is A, and I would teach them the alphabet and how to do 1 + 1. And it was my joy to do that, completely forgotten as an adult, completely, because I'm supposed to be an art major, So yeah. Do you help your clients get in touch with maybe those memories that were very real, besides maybe they're not open to a spiritual experience like I was, but
Right.
they're very real.
Oh, I love that example. And I don't know if you would be in tune with this right now, but something happened between this 3-year-old Royce, who is expressing her joy through teaching, that told Royce that it was not acceptable or not appropriate or not right for her. Maybe it was because you were supposed to go doing this art stuff. You were supposed to create something else, right? And so whatever that was, your attention was directed away from your own internal intuition to something that an adult thought would be a better match for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I find hypnosis is incredibly powerful for these kinds of things, because at the core of all of our resistance is a belief that supports the resistance.
Yes.
Right? It justifies the resistance.
Yep.
And all of those core beliefs probably came to us between birth and 7 years old, at some point when we were highly sensitive, highly open to whatever was coming, and we take everything very personally, right? So it could have been a very loving parent who said, "Oh, Royce, come play with the crayons and the markers and clay and make something over here. This is what you're good at." Right. And little Royce could have just said, "Oh, well, that must mean that I'm not good at this or this teaching, or I shouldn't be doing it." And so your little Royce makes that decision that I can't teach. That's not right for me. I'm supposed to be doing this over here. And now we're living with this belief. I can't or don't want to. I'm repulsed by teaching.
Yeah.
Because it was a belief. And so that through hypnosis, we can go back to that time. We can experience it as safe, because although we can immerse ourselves into it in the moment, we're not literally there, so nothing is going to hurt us. And we are able to release the emotions that little Royce experienced at that time, because it's the emotions, the energy of that emotion that holds that belief in place. And so when you can get to that and release that energy of that emotion, this belief doesn't have anything to hold on to anymore. And so now you're free to set in a new belief about what you believe about yourself and what your behavior plans and strategies are going to be. And again, you're programming this, because we can't possibly plan everything, right? As much as we like to think we can, we've got to be much more adaptive and much more intuitive. So hypnosis, I have found, really helps get to some of those deep core beliefs that our nervous system says, no way in hell are you going to let go of this one. Our life depends on this. Hypnosis helps us get past that, and then create those new beliefs.
Yeah. And that's the work that I do. I don't use hypnosis. I use a meditative guided state.
Sure.
And I also find that a lot of it comes from past lives. That's what gave me my freedom to discover, oh yeah, I was doing this thing in this other lifetime, and it's still impacting me in this lifetime, and I'm supposed to be teaching, so that that took it to a much deeper level. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when you get into past lives and future lives, right? Because it's all happening now, right?
Right.
That having people like you who can help us tap into those parts of ourselves is so valuable, because again, most of us have been told that that's wrong in some way, even if it is possible, right? It was wrong. And so we shy away from that. And again, we abandon those parts of ourselves
Yeah.
in the process.
So you do that with your clients? Do you do hypnosis with
I do
them? Oh,
hypnosis.
good.
Yep.
Yeah. Another story is just coming to mind, and it really fits with what you're talking about. I had a student one time years ago, and she was just this wonderful woman, and she was a flight attendant, and she loved her job. And then all of a sudden one day she just started to hate her job, just despised it. I don't want to do this anymore. And she fell into this really deep depression, and nothing could bring her out of it. And so I helped her to look at something deeper about it. And what she discovered was that way back as a child, she wanted to be a therapist, and she had suppressed it, and went the safe route, got a nice little 9-to-5 gig where she got to travel and look how fun this is and all of that. But she was supposed to be a therapist. And when she got in touch with that and went back to school, everything shifted in her life. So it's that kind of thing too that we suppress all the time.
It is.
Yeah.
And we all have access to it.
Yeah.
It is available to all of us. And I think that's another thing, if I'm going back to that question, what keeps us from experiencing this joy is that we believe that it's not available to us.
Yeah. Or we believe we don't deserve it.
We don't deserve it. I'm not worthy of it, right?
Yes.
Or I'm not capable of doing this. We have all of those stories. And all of those stories were necessary to our nervous system at some point. But for most of us now, as an adult, they're not necessary. And so we really do need, that's a strong word. We benefit from doing a review of what are the beliefs that I'm operating from. Because again, I think we've been taught it's a stimulus response world. Something happens outside of us and I respond to it.
Yeah.
Versus something happens outside of me. I decide what this means, what I feel about it, and what I'm going to do about it, and then see what impact what I do and feel what has on the results.
Yeah.
We don't even give ourselves permission. And I think part of that is, and I think maybe this is one of the barriers, right, to this whole movement idea too, is, well, then I would have to be responsible for that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's scary, right? Because again, we have all these rules and ideas about what it means to be accountable. That means that I don't ever fail, and that I don't ever do it wrong, or no missteps. But I don't think that's what it means. I think there's really just this intention of, what would it look like to live in love in this moment right now?
Yeah. Scary.
Whether I hit it out of the park or, I strike out, at least I showed up for it and I learned something about myself in the process. And if I struck out or felt like it didn't go that way, then I know that there's something within me that is still holding me back. And all I have to do is just love that part of me.
Yeah.
I don't have to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it really, to me, what I help my students get in touch with is, why do you believe you don't deserve? Where did that come from? Where is that coming from in your life that says, oh, it's too scary to do my purpose because I don't deserve it. It's too scary to love. It's too scary to be in joy because, I don't deserve that. So that's always the core that we discover. So, yeah.
Can I just pick on one word there?
Sure.
Because I see this coming up a lot, and I don't think you meant it this way, but that word why, right? Or that question why, right? So when one of the things that I've learned about this resistance, if I ask that why question, why is this coming up for me? Then I'm still in that perspective of a victim. It's happening to me. Why? What I prefer to do is ask what or how questions. Yeah. What is this meaning to me? What is it that I'm resisting? What is it that I would have to believe for me to feel this way? Yeah. How long have I been experiencing this, right? So those what and how questions avoid the why, because the why is a place where we can hide. What and how it tends not to be such a space to hide in.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. So we have 3 more minutes. Tell us how to get in contact with you, what people need to do to enroll in elevating their joy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think you have my LinkedIn profile. So we'll have a link to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the social media platform I play on the most. And I would also say come to my website, plenavita.coach, and connect with me there. You can message me through there. And just let me know that you heard this podcast. It's something about it that maybe stood out to you. And is there a question or something that I could help you answer? Or maybe I'm going to make an exception. Maybe you know of someone else who's struggling, but if they're struggling and you recognize it, there's part of you too that is struggling with that as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are thinking about someone else, think about what they're struggling with and how you might be struggling with that, and make that part of your inquiry, putting yourself first.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Mary Meduna-Gross. I really appreciate talking to you, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
I can't wait.
Yeah. And just to remind everybody that next Wednesday, I'm doing my other show, which is called It's All Mirrors. And I'm going to be talking to somebody who is a very conscious business person, and he brings it to a whole other level with what he does in his business. He's an entrepreneur forever, and he just uses mirrors to be his best teacher in terms of what he needs to get in touch with and what he needs to resolve so that his business can succeed. It's going to be really interesting. So next Wednesday, tune in. It's all mirrors. And thank you again so much. It's yay, joy.
Joyce, thank you for connecting consciousness and business and helping us figure out how these pieces fit together. I really do appreciate that about you.
Well, I had no choice. It was handed to me, and
That's right. And you're taking it on. I appreciate that. It's good to be with you.
And I'll see everybody next Wednesday. Thank you. And deserve joy.
Yes.